Well, we're heading down to Steve's.
We are. It's so beautiful today.
It is. Fall day and whatnot, but what takes us down there is a little bit depressing. Life moves on, but
it does.
After Al passed away and Steve has some medical problems of his own, he's going in 2 weeks for a hip replacement surgery.
Right.
He's having such a hard time getting around right now, and he can't work on the railroad.
Can't get up and down on ladders.
Can't operate the railroad, and he's just afraid that he'll end up passing away and his railroad will get thrown into a dumpster. So
I hope not. But
we hope not too, but
yeah,
I mean,
after
what's happened with Al, the reality of the situation is setting in that if he were to in fact pass away, that's probably what would happen, is the railroad would probably just get trashed.
It's a sobering thought, I'll tell you what.
So he's spent so many decades putting it together, he now wants to take a good deal of time and very carefully take the railroad apart and dismantle it and turn it into small dioramas, and at least these dioramas can then live on after him.
Right.
Some are being sold, some are being given away to friends, family, and that sort of thing. And we've seen some pictures, and boy, they're turning out really neat.
Oh, they're wonderful.
So,
but it's just, yeah.
It's upsetting.
What it means, the significance.
But we just, what can you say?
Right.
Anyway, check this out. We're going down there to see the first of these dioramas. Well, Steve's Railroad is just absolutely amazing. We've done a whole bunch of shows on Steve's Railroad. We go over there all the time.
We do. I remember going there when we were first together, and I was just amazed at how neat that railroad was.
Well, I've always said that it's one of the world's best model railroads, and that's not just some hyperbole. That's an absolute fact. He's been working on it for decades. I'm not sure how long. He's been doing model railroads for over 60 years, but this particular railroad, I think, is about 30 years old.
Wow, that's really cool.
The railroad is built on the second floor of Steve's house. Steve's house was originally a barn or a silo or something. It's all cast out of concrete, and it was built in the 1800s. The cement for it was brought around the tip of South America on a ship. Over the years, Steve has really become one of the great model railroaders. Just fantastic, the work he does.
This coaling tower is one of my favorites. I just can't stop looking at it.
It's one of the most amazing pieces of model railroading I've ever seen. Steve's probably best known for his structures, although there's a couple of hundred cars on the railroad, and of course, scratch-built engines and stuff that's ready to run, and kits and so on. But probably best known for his structures, which are just so highly detailed and all scratch-built, and most of them have interiors as well.
I really like this mine. I'll tell you what, those miners had better have some good leg muscles to go up and down all of those stairs.
Well, all of Steve's buildings have a lot of stairs. Everything's built into a hill. But he loves to put stairways all around things. One of the most amazing things about Steve's structures is that most of them have interiors, full interiors. He scratch builds most of the furniture. Some comes from castings and whatnot. But flooring materials, wallpaper. This diner's really amazing. Check out those ketchup and mustard bottles that he made.
This is really an amazing area.
It looks so neat, and one of the things that's really amazing about it is you really can't see it. I mean, it's behind some other buildings and around back, and unless you crane your head around or stick your cell phone in there to photograph it, you'll never even know it's there. But it's like a lot of the interior details. I mean, Steve's put a lot of work into creating it, but it's really, really hard to see because of the nature of the railroad. It's a railroad, and you have to peer through little windows or crane your head around to try to see all these interior details.
I love this underground mine. This has to be my most favorite.
You know, very few people would model the underground part of a mine, but Steve's just knocked it dead. It's just brilliant. It's again, it's sort of like his interiors, but the interior of a mine.
It's cool though.
Oh, it's amazing. It's a work of art. I know Steve's always enjoyed working on the railroad, but lately it's become really hard for him. His hip has gone out and his knees are bad. He can't crawl around under the layout anymore and can't work up on top of ladders. And it's just become really challenging for him to work on the railroad. And his roommate here, Al, who also worked on the layout, just passed away suddenly a couple of months ago. And that's really left Steve in a predicament because he can't function around the railroad. And without Al, there's so many places he can't even get to. The railroad is just, I've always referred to it as a ship in a bottle.
Right.
It's because the railroad is really that crowded. After all these decades, he's stuck stuff in any place he can figure out a place to stick it. And not only does that mean that you really can't see a lot of this detail, he can't even get to it to work on it or clean tracks to operate it or anything like that. And Al has been taking care of a lot of that duty, but now with Steve trying to do it, well, he just can't. I mean, with a bad hip and bad knees and everything, he just can't work on the railroad anymore. So it was inevitable that something had to change, I guess. And Steve announced a few weeks ago that he's going to dismantle the railroad and turn it into small dioramas and then give away the dioramas to people because he can't work on the railroad. And he's afraid that when he passes away, somebody's going to come in and just bust it up with a sledgehammer, and that'll be an end of it.
That would be so tragic. It's such a treasure, a work of art. Something needs to be done to preserve it.
And I guess Steve's idea is as good as it's going to get. I mean, I don't know what else could be done. So we headed over to Steve to see the demolition. The first place that he took apart was the last place that he built, which is the Village of Nowhere, which is up on top of a roof beam and really hard to get to. Frankly, we've never even had a chance to get a good look at it because of its location. And, well, it's not up there anymore. It's down on the workbench, all taken apart.
It seems so difficult to see that coming apart since he just got it put together.
Well, we watched that village getting built, and now, just right after it got built, it's gone. This area right here was Shoehorn Gulch, a lot of people's favorite areas, and it's all dismantled now. Steve's just taking the whole railroad apart.
Well, I have really mixed feelings about it. Something I've been building and playing with this stuff for 65 years. And I've just enjoyed every minute of it. But with Alan's passing 2 months ago, it just kind of took the wind out of my sails. He helped me so much, you know, for years and years and years. We've been friends, and he's contributed a bunch of buildings, he's contributed cars, he's contributed moral support. He helped me with a lot of different things. The last 4 years we've been roommates. So, and now that he's gone, it's just dawned on me that it's just going to be too hard to continue on, and I don't want to be taken by surprise the way we all were when he went. I've got problems with my hip. I can't negotiate the stairs very well. I can't get up to work on the places on the layout. I figure my time is somewhat limited. I don't know whether I got 10 days, 10 years, or 10 weeks left. But I just don't want to leave this thing so it can just be thrown into a dipsty dumpster. So I figure I can try and pass on and salvage as much of it as I can before the inevitable happens. And so I made the comment to Dale that when you get old and you want to tear your layout apart, you just turn it all into dioramas. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to give some to my kids, some to my friends, some to other people. Some people have bought some stuff. just when you think you're arrived in something, then you're too old.
I suppose one of the great upsides here is now with the stuff down where you can actually get a good look at it, you can really see how incredible the detail is here. You can see through the windows and see the people and all of the furniture and ornamentation inside. This is the Village of Nowhere. Oh boy, it doesn't look anything like the Village of Nowhere anymore. It's just all dismantled. But he's starting to put that together to turn it into one of these dioramas, the first of these dioramas. And this one he's giving to his previous boss, Josh Ferran, because he named the pier here after him. It's Ferran's Boat Shop.
Oh, how neat.
So he promised it to him, and he said, you're going to get it. So here it is, the first of the dioramas, a part of the Village of Nowhere, about a third of the Village of Nowhere, all turned into this boat dock, Ferran's Boat Shop. It's amazing how small this diorama is. It's only a couple of feet long and probably less than a foot wide, but look how many structures there are.
It's amazing.
But you know, the whole railroad has been like that. It's a huge room, but every square inch is just stuffed with stuff. And now that it's turned into these small dioramas, each of these little small dioramas is just packed with detail. We were joking earlier about all the stairways and how healthy anybody has to be to live in one of Steve's villages. But the whole railroad's been built on multiple levels, and when it gets turned into these dioramas, it ends up still being on lots of levels. There's about 3 distinct levels to this harbor.
I like the way the water turned out here at the water line. I hate to say it, but I can almost smell it.
It looks disgusting. It's so beautiful. But all it is paint. Steve doesn't do any kind of elaborate, clear detail casting. He just puts paint on there and gets it looking exactly the way he wants, and it looks like water.
It does.
But it's just painted on. And everywhere you look, there's some sort of scene going on. Figures doing something, these people fishing off of the pier, or somebody loading wood, or somebody docking their boat. But everywhere you look, there's a little story developing. It makes sense that somebody would be selling dry firewood.
Well, dry is the best, don't you think?
Oh, well, it isn't going to work if it's all wet. And here at the riverfront like this, dry wood is worth its weight in wood, I guess.
Yes.
Worth 5 cents at least. Lots of little businesses, people playing music. There's just so many fun little scenes around here. The more you look, the more you see.
That's right. I really love this crane. It looks just like it would really work.
It might. Look at that. I mean, it's got an engine in there or some kind of hoist mechanism. It looks fully functional, even though it's not. And there's a couple of pieces of rolling stock here. All scratch build, of course. Steve has built many, many pieces of rolling stock for the railroad. And for these dioramas, he's taking a couple of pieces of rolling stock and attaching them directly to the track. This part of the railroad is 30-inch gauge, and it's got these 2 pieces of rolling stock here that are just glued down now. He's not planning to make any of these dioramas functional or anything like that. But even though the track work isn't meant to be functional, it is intended to be beautiful. Look how neat that turned out. On30 became really popular a few years ago, and Steve put in an entire branch line in 30-inch gauge. Here are the guys that are selling the dry firewood down below.
Oh, and look, there's a furniture repair place.
Yeah, Ferran's Boat Shop. The sign says Ferran's Boat Shop and Furniture Repair. So maybe this is Josh Ferran right here, for all we know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, there's a kitty on the rail.
I think he's begging for food.
Wow, these guys, they're playing Dill Pickle Rag. I can hear it.
I love Dill Pickle Rag. One of the interesting things about this is with all these different vertical levels, as you go up and up and up, that gives opportunities for scene after scene after scene, all packed into this very, very small space.
Oh, look, they're building boats here.
Yeah, we did that one video on the boat shop and the Village of Nowhere, and we talked about how Steve builds these little scratch-built boats, but they're actually built out of paper, and he came up with the neatest technique for building wood boats out of paper, and we talk about that in the other video. When you start looking around, it turns out that there's a lot of boats here. A bunch under construction, as well as the ones down there in the actual harbor. But there must be like a dozen boats all packed into different places around here. Well, there's the original Village of Nowhere, and it's really sad to see it gone. But the upside is, for the very first time, we have actually gotten a really good look at it.
Yes, indeed.
So I guess that's the upside of taking it all apart, and at least we have great photographs of what it once looked like.
So
There it is.
there it is.
We're hitting all the stoplights.
As long as I hit the pedestrian.
Don't hit the stoplight. Oh, red light finder's working fine.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, there we have it. That's the Village of Nowhere,
Right.
which is now somewhere
Yes.
other than where it once was.
But
It's-
in a good place.
But in a good place. And boy, is it beautiful.
It is. It's wonderful.
And more dismantling going on and more of these things being built.
Right.
I don't know how many of them he's going to end up building. He doesn't know how many he's going to end up
No.
building. But he's just going to keep proceeding to dismantle the railroad. And here in 2 weeks, when he gets his hip replacement surgery, we will kind of update you on the channel as we go along how that's going to impact this whole piece of business, because it will. And we'll just kind of follow the whole progress of the thing going forward, just as we followed the progress of the railroad getting built.
Right.
And we'll just see where we end up with this whole thing.
Right.
Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, do pop over to the channel, and if you're not a subscriber, do subscribe, because it helps us out with numbers and statistics and that sort of
It
thing.
does.
And the easy way to subscribe is with the blue button. You ready? Boing! Big blue button right there says subscribe.
Right.
Well, we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you here again on Tuesday with a Collector's Attic. We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.